everyone, thank you for joining. Welcome to Step-by-Step Guide to Simplifying Your Learning Ecosystem. My name is Austin Smith. I have been working here at Infopro Learning for the past 8, going on 9 years, all of it in our learning tech division. I've done a bunch of LMS and LXP implementations, as well as a bunch of tech rationalizations, which is really going to be what we're getting into today with this guide. So let me go ahead and we'll start kind of jumping in here. So first and foremost, I wanted to start the presentation off with a little bit about who we are here at Infopro. And I think this is important because simplifying your learning ecosystem is not it's not as easy as it sounds, right? And it's one of the things that we had kind of found in working with some clients, and I'll give you the background and the story here on the next slide. But really having a learning partner who understands or is working in other areas of learning can really help in understanding not only the tools and technology on the market, but really how our learning tools are impacting our different learner profiles, right? We're seeing nowadays more and more, we're leveraging learning to not only the internal employees, which tends to be like where people think when we talk about learning and training, but also to our clients, partners, and even prospective clients, right? So, really quick here at Infopro, we are an end-to-end learning services organization. Everything from strategy to execution to the technology to help between the two. We do here, we've been in the business for about 30 years. Again, so can be a great partner along your journey in terms of simplifying this learning ecosystem. Now, looks like my mouse died, so give me 1 second. Perfect timing. Mouse, can't click on the next slide. There we go. Okay, so the challenge, right? What is up? Is our learning tech stack as complicated as it is now, right? And really it kind of boils down to technology today moves so fast, and as organizations, we're bringing in technology to help us stay competitive, right? And it's competitive whether it's how are we training our employees to make sure we're retaining that talent, how are we enabling our partners' success so they can go out and implement our products or tools, how can we train our clients so they know how to best leverage our services, or they're empowered to take advantage of the tools that we're offering them, and then how can we get this learning out to our prospects so they can learn more, right, and use it as a value add in the sales cycle. Now, because everything is moving so fast, these tech stacks tend to grow and grow and grow. And since COVID, we've kind of seen us reach this critical mass of sitting down and looking at our tech stack and saying, wow, we went from 5 tools to 20 tools, right? Or we went from 2 LMSs to 7 LMSs. We need to start to reduce some of this overhead, right? Because it's starting to strain. And we see that strain in a few areas, right? Number one, overall cost. Obviously, if we're running learning management systems are kind of an easy thing to pick on here. But if we're running 3, 4, 5 learning management systems in different departments because they all purchase them in like a silo, we're taking on a lot of costs that we wouldn't if we just had a single platform, right? There's also oftentimes if we're buying a platform for all of the employees in the organization and we're going to have clients and partners in there, there's the bulk discounts that we get when we're planning out high volume platforms. So oftentimes if you have one platform with 10,000 people, you'd be paying less than 3 platforms with 3,000 people. Also, there's another cost associated with this, which is the cost of an inconsistent user experience, whether that's for our clients, whether that's for our partners, whether that's for our prospects, or even our employees. Oftentimes, we're sending them from tool to tool to tool, and we're creating like a disjointed user experience. Now, usually with our employees, we have to use so many internal tools anyway between what HR is leveraging, what IT wants to use for our security training, that's just kind of a natural process. But when it comes to, partners and clients, we want to make sure that we're handling them with and giving them the ultimate best experience as we can, right? The next element and big struggle of this challenge is when we have multiple tools, we often can't integrate them all together. So our data ends up kind of fragmented and living in each one of these tools independently, or being leveraged by whatever department purchased that tool independently, and doesn't sit in our like bigger data analytics tools like Tableau, Power BI, or whatever we're using internally, which again prevents the business from being able to get valuable insights on how certain programs are tracking, or how certain teams are performing, because again that data kind of lives off in somewhere else. The other issue as well is they tend to not be integrated in our single source of truth systems, just because it's too many integrations to be funneling into those platforms. Whether we're working off like a CRM, like a Salesforce or something, and we only have one plugin into that, or we're paying per plugin, or we're doing integrations with an HR tool, and obviously we don't want a bunch of different tools pulling information out of our single source of truth. So usually when we have a bunch of smaller ancillary platforms, they tend to not be integrated, again, which causes some friction for the learner because it's not as easy to leverage, and then it causes that disjointed data. And then the last piece, and if you're in IT here, maybe this will resonate with you the most, the strain that having so many tools has on IT, right? IT often is working through security and governance across all the tools in the organization. They're making sure they're doing their risks analysis, and they've done all their vendor assessments. And the more vendors that we're partnering with, the more tools that we have, it's more for IT to manage, right? And we've also even seen duplicate tools, right, purchased, where someone might buy a platform and then someone else buys a platform, but we never crossed over that we're already using that platform internally with one another. And so we've bought the platform, but separately, right? So we have now two instances of that same platform that are running independently when we could just have them together. Again, helps IT, helps overall cost, helps a lot of things. Now, we really started to recognize this challenge in 2023 and 2024. This wasn't something that clients were coming to us at the time saying, hey, I have way too many tools, right? They were coming to us via RFP and saying, for instance, hey, we put out this RFP. We have 7 learning management systems today. We're hoping to consolidate them down as much as possible, right? We might be able to consolidate it into 1. We might still need 2, but our goal is, here's all of our functionality. Here's what we need, from a platform standpoint. And when we're responding to these RFPs, we found that in almost every instance, when we were trying to consolidate tools, these RFPs were stalling. Installing to the fact that we're 3, 4, 5 months past when that award date initially had been set, and the organization is just kind of like in deadlock with one another, or after we get those proposals out and the organization start to review them, they end up just dropping that proposal altogether because they realize they missed something. And what happens, and what we were realizing, is if you haven't done this rationalization first, when you sit down with all of those proposals following this RFP, and you start to say, all right, which platform works best for this group, which platform works best for this group, each department head or business unit who is in the group of, hey, here's the function I need for my people, here's the function I need for the learners that I'm training, here's the function I need for my learning profile, we end up with this posturing of them trying to justify why they purchased the tool that they had purchased previously, or why their functionality, right, is like must have, can't compromise. And when each one of these business units is acting like is working in that capacity, because we haven't come and brought everyone together and unified them all in our approach and what actual key functionality is that we need. We end up in this deadlock situation where everyone just kind of says, well, I'm just going to continue to use the tool that I'm using, or like I can't compromise on these certain things, and these tools don't get it done. That tool does get it done, but it might not get, the tool that gets it done for that person might not get it done for the next person, right? So really, tech rationalization is a great way to start, where we can not only understand all of that key, we call it impact functionality, for the different learner profiles and understanding each one of those business units, but be able to put it in a comprehensive RFP document that does not have any bias associated with it, and allows us to make better decisions on the outcome of that RFP, right? So here is just the wheel Infopro of all of our services here at Infopro, and kind of the two things that we have pulled together here for learning tech rationalization. Obviously, technology division, that's where I've been working for the past 8 years. We do technology consulting. We have our own learning management system. We build custom portals, all of that. So we're really well versed in the different tools and tech in the industry. But we also have a big learning strategy component of our organization as well. And so what we did is we kind of took the tech consulting piece, the strategy piece, and we smashed them together using this assess, align, plan strategy to help our organizations and our clients not only understand what tools they're leveraging now, where overlap is between those, but then also give them some clear, tangible outcomes as an output of this tech rationalization, right? Now we understand that when you bought your learning tools previously, a lot goes into that, right? A lot goes into buying an LMS, implementing an LMS, replacing an LMS, buying a LXP or implementing an LXP, even buying some of our authoring tools, right? We go through a big process just because the market is so large in evaluating at the time what is going to be the best tool for us with where we stand now and what we think is going to be the best tool for us in the future, right? But because we are typically working in a silo usually, it allows us, or it kind of prevents us from being able to take a step back and look at it with a little bit bigger picture. And so here is kind of what this bigger picture starts to look like as we drill down into each element of assess, align, and plan. First off, when we're talking about assessment, we work in each one of these elements, we try to go to what business unit is leveraging the tools that we're using, right? So again, we've kind of talked about the employees, partners, customers, right? So let's say there were 3 business units that were doing training, and oftentimes in an organization, we understand that there's 5, 6, 7 different business units that have different training needs that they have going on. But simplifying for today, we're going to go and interview with the key stakeholders in each one of those business units on these 4 main components. Number 1, who are we training, right? What is our learning profile? What do they need? What do they expect from us? How are they getting access to these tools or to the training that we're delivering to them, right? Are they paying for it? Is it a free service? Just so we can best understand that individual. And what we end up putting together as an outcome of that, and we'll come back to this particular slide, is a persona for this learner, right? Now, it typically does not have to be as detailed as this persona. This persona was tied to not only tech rationalization, but also a learning strategy. So we were using this to help develop content, but understanding, hey, what are some of the pain points that this learner is going through, right? In terms of when they're coming to our training, why? What is some of their motivation to get them to the tool? What are the responsibilities or the goals of actually deploying training to this individual, right? And we break these personas down for each different business unit. So that one was employee. We would have one for the different clients that we have, or the one for the different partners that we're engaging with. We also dig down into, well, what's the current state, right? Because if we're looking at some sort of application rationalization or to consolidate platforms, usually there's a current state and a desired state or some sort of business region that's pushing this. So where are we now? Where do we need to be? And then what tech tools has got us where we are now, and understanding what functions we're leveraging in each one of those platforms that is getting us where we need to be, and then what functionality we're missing that is preventing us from getting to that desired state, right? Sometimes we simply outgrow tools, right? Or a tool was the company was really focused on developing it, and now they've like started developing something else, and so the tool isn't as well supported as it was before, so we need to make a replacement there. So we really try and get a good understanding for each one of these units, current state, future state, for the people, technology, and process. Once we've done that and we've kind of created all of our rough documentation, we really start to take all of those data inputs that we've gotten and align them. We put together basically a big RFP document for each group, and we start to see what functions or what features do every department need, right? So we can rank those in terms of importance as most important, right? Every group or every business unit needs this specific functionality. Then we go and we look at what we call the impact functionality, which we'll cover on another slide here in a second, which is what is the biggest key driver for each of these business units in terms of success for their program to meet the business performance requirements that they have, right? So a good example would be, if sales is actively selling learning content, they need a platform that is e-commerce enabled, right? If we do not have a platform that's e-commerce enabled, it is a non-starter for sales, if that is what they're going to. So we would label that as impact functionality, right? If a custom interface is something we want to deliver, that would be impact functionality for whatever group needs a custom interface, right? And so we start to kind of put everything together, and we get it to each one of these key shareholders so they can see exactly where their department sits or their business unit sits from a functionality standpoint, but also get a good understanding from these personas and from this functionality list of how the other units intend to use this platform, right? Then the last piece is this plan element, and this is basically delivering all of the final results, right? So when we're working with an organization, we would sit down and we would say, first and foremost, you get a detailed RFP questionnaire that you can immediately start getting out to prospective clients or put out an RFP in your procurement platform. We'll share our recommendations on tools that we've used in the past, right, for this, whether it's learning management systems, whether it's LXPs, just where we have had success in our previous partnerships when we're working with an organization. Sometimes we'll also uncover things like, hey, for the success of your program, you might want to go down an LXP with like a custom interface, and this is what we would suggest that looks like. So we can get a little bit nitty gritty and actually work with you on like some of the actual aspects of it. It kind of depends on, again, where the organization is at or was at with the programs that they've rolled out previously. And then we would set down like some general budget, like what would you expect to buy a system that encompasses all of this? Or sometimes we've had these come out where we're saying, I don't think you're going to be able to do this in one system. It might take two, right? But here is a budget that we could expect would be fair for you to go or to share with potential vendors that you might be partnering with. Here is like a general plan of how we would suggest rolling this out, because change management, when you're moving or consolidating from 3 systems or 4 systems down to 1, tends to be a little bit of a challenge. So we share a little bit about what the change management process might look like, and then also some general timelines on what you should expect implementation to look like from some of these technology partners, right? Now, again, this is all just expected, right, from a budget plan, timeline type stuff. Every organization that you work with is going to be a little bit different, or depending on when it's at in the year. But we try to really give you as much information as possible so you can go forth and find the system directly as an output of this exercise. Now, the final element of this, right? So what all of those outputs look like is when we share them back, and what to expect if you do this internally is just a brief overview of, what the engagement looked like. I'll show you a little bit of that today. We usually have a list of every person we interviewed, what they shared in that interview. I'll actually show what an interview questionnaire, like how we kind of pool them, looks like here. What did we learn from these? What different tools are we using? What's the spend of all the current tools? So if we were to migrate to a single tool or 2 tools, what is the expected ROI of that? Where are we headed in the future? Do we think that, where technology is now is going to be able to accommodate us in the future, or 3-4 years down the road with where this is going? Do we think we're going to need a new tool? The key findings of all of that, right? Overlap functionality, impact functionality, desired state, where we need to grow from a business perspective, our recommendations, like I shared, and then that final RFP or proposed roadmap of development if we're going to use our tool or if we're going to use other tools. Now, what do these actually look like? Let me show you. So this is kind of it's more of a menu. Obviously, when we're interviewing stakeholders, we don't want to be asking 40 questions, right? 20 questions is okay, but a million questions here typically isn't. So what we'll usually do is, as we get an understanding of that business unit and how they're learning, we start to kind of fine tune some of the questions that we're asking here, so we can be as pointed as possible. Typically, these interviews last 15 to 20 minutes. And oftentimes, not only are we interviewing like key stakeholders, but we're also interviewing some other team members in that department that might be interacting with the technology, right? What are they getting out of it? Where are like some pinch points and pain points for them? And so we really like fine tune this interview down, but these are just an example of some standard questions that we have. The next piece here is that persona, right? And I had shown this earlier, just briefly, but we develop a persona for each one of those learner profiles, right? So again, this is an example for new hire, but if this organization had employee training that was going on, or onboarding in this case, if they had clients and partners that they were engaging with that they all expected to be in this like central learning management system or learning platform, we would have personas developed for each one of those as well, again, so we can understand who they are, why they're here, what they expect when they get here, and we can really boil down that functionality or what we need in a platform for them. And then the final piece for each one of these units is basically this impact functionality scorecard and growth scorecard, right? So here is an example, and because we have a new hire here as our persona, we did an onboarding platform, right? This is working with HR, helping increase and make a better onboarding experience. So what we do from our evaluation perspective is we label down, all right, what are the goals for each one of the key elements? So we have user experience, we have the actual training, the behavior changes we're trying to drive with this change, and then the expected business results for them. We do a breakdown of the expected outcomes of this new tool or implementing this new technology, where we'll break down what do we actually want to get done here, right? We want 3% higher satisfaction rating. We want our 100%, which is a pretty ambitious goal here, but we want 100% passing rate on all knowledge checks as they work their way through the onboarding journey, right? We want to increase our employee retention, reduce our time to onboard, right? And we break down that anticipated outcome with what the current state is so we can see the difference. And it gives us a really good measuring tape, so to speak, for each one of these units when you implement that new tool, or when you choose that new tool, to say, is this, meeting the metrics that we have? And it also allows us in that RFP document, when we put it out, to say, hey, here's where we're trying to go with consolidating these tools, right? Not only are we trying to reduce costs, but we need growth in each one of these areas. And so being very clear and upfront with our partners allow us to, allow us to point and say, like, this is what success means to us. And so oftentimes we'll see in these contracts, we can now write in those success metrics as part of that contract. And then the last piece that we talked about, and kind of the big key piece of the rationalization, is impact functionality, right? And this is where we see in trying to do this internally, sometimes with these shareholders, we can see a little bit of defensiveness, right? Oftentimes what we're trying to do if we're going about it internally, if HR is talking to sales about, hey, why are you using this platform? Or we see you're using this platform, why did you end up purchasing it? They end up defending that purchase, right, in that conversation. What we've seen is when we've been coming in as like a total third party who has no skin in the game, is really getting to this impact functionality, or like, why was this important, is less of a justification to why I purchased it, but we can look at that learner persona. We can look at how they're leveraging the current tool, and we can say, like, this is actually having an impact, right? And so this is a great piece of the outcome of this, is understanding exactly what functions are the most important to each group, which we talked about earlier, right? So here's kind of an example. User experience for onboarding. A unique, inclusive experience that wraps up the brand, it wraps up the program, and makes it all look and feel like one, instead of just looking like a basic LMS, right? Would be an impact functionality for helping creating an onboarding journey. The same thing for how do we, push people to get higher completion rates, badging, points, leaderboards, right? To create some competition and drive them to check off all the boxes, right? We see gamification is a great tool for that. Some other, when we're talking about behavior change and driving behavior change, using AI tools, deep linking to internal resources so they can leverage all the tools that they're working with and information that they have at their fingertips. So for each group, you kind of have this specific functionality, and oftentimes we'll find some overlap, right, with these functions, which allows us, again, to say, okay, when we're going out to these other vendors, here's exactly what we need. Here's our non-negotiables. Here's our nice to have. And then because we sat down for each group and we said, what functions are you leveraging? What functions are you leveraging? We have the 100% ranked functions of most important to least important to, future state. And then the last thing, I didn't attach it here because they're not necessarily fun to look at in a PowerPoint format, is that RFP document with everything in it, right? Just the whole list of features and functions that we standard see, but again, specific to you and not just a culmination of, RFPs that we pulled off the web or other things that we've seen. If any questions come up down the line, or if something pops up if you're watching this for the first time, maybe you couldn't attend today's session, don't hesitate to reach out. All of my contact information is here. If you have a question on, what does it look like to start a tech rationalization, if you have a question on potentially partnering for tech rationalization, or just getting more insight on something you might have seen in this document that I didn't dive super deep into for sake of time today, please feel free to shoot me an email, connect with me on LinkedIn, shoot me a message there. Whatever works best for you, we're more than happy to help you along your journey to help simplify your learning tech stack. So we'll go ahead and wrap up today's session. Thank you so much for joining. Have a great rest of your day.